We also see that Jesus was there at creation. If you look at the 1st of John. Jesus was there. God said, let us make man in our own image. He wasn't talking to imaginary friends. If God was finished at creation, this would be diminished into a very sad story. Because you know what? Man messes up. Man falls away from God. And so God has created a person that is living and that is spiritual. Adam and Eve fell into sin. They fell into temptation. They broke God's rule. And so now we have man in a sinful state. In a perfect world, they introduced sin. Now let me ask you this. Let's say tomorrow for lunch, I have a huge cake in there that I baked myself. I make some pretty awesome cakes. All right. So let's say that I followed the recipe exactly. And this is set up to be the most awesome cake you've ever tasted. I mean, you'll take one bite and pass out in a diabetic coma. That's how awesome this cake is. You would kind of be excited to taste it, right? Especially the sugar nuts. You'd be excited to taste it. Well, what if I were to tell you that I added a secret ingredient?
I would not eat it.
Yeah. You should be. What if I were to tell you that I put a drop of toxic waste in the batter?
Oh, it's so easy.
I eat it.
Hey, trust me, listen. I don't doubt it. Trust me, though. This cake is going to taste awesome. It just has that little drop of toxic waste in it. I mean, it may make you grow a third arm. You may lose sight in one eye. But, it's going to taste awesome. Okay? How many of you would be willing to eat it?
Oh my God.
All of the young ones.
Good. Let's kill them off.
But really and truthfully, do you want to eat toxic waste? And if toxic waste doesn't scare you, let's just say I took a dip out of the porta potty before they cleaned it. But it was just a little bit. I think it's fair enough to say that just a little bit of something can ruin an entire thing, right? Just a little bit. It ruined the entire cake. Sin is the same way in our life. You say, well, as long as I don't sin, it's okay. Wrong. Because we are spiritual creatures in a physical body. And I want you to know that your spirit and your physical body are knit together. They're knit together. They affect each other. One small introduction to sin. You know what it did? It changed your spiritual DNA. One small bit changed your life forever. That was thousands and thousands of years ago, but it only takes a little bit, remember? Psalm 51:5. Psalmist says, behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me. You're born into a sinful world. It's not a choice. It's not an option. When you were born, you're born into a sinful world. You have an immediate desire and proclivity to sin. You're going to sin. You can't help it. Why? It's in your DNA. One little bit ruins the whole thing. Ephesians chapter 2. I'll give you a second to turn there because we're going to be here for a second. Ephesians chapter 2, we're going to look at verses 1 through 9. Ephesians 2, beginning in verse 1. And you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sin, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of power of the air, The Spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom also we once were conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. But God, who is rich in mercy, but God, who is rich in mercy, because of His great love with which He loved us, even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved and raised up together, and made us sit together in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come He might show exceeding riches of His grace and His kindness towards us in Jesus Christ. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not that of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not the works, lest anyone should boast. See, we were dead because of our sin. Our spiritual DNA says you're going to die. Our physical body is ridden with sin, says you're going to die. If you want to make a sure bet on the fact that you're going to die. It's kind of gruesome, I know. But you know what? It happens to everybody. Why? Because we're sinful. Sin entered the world. And because of that sin, we were sentenced to death. But through the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ, He made a way where we don't have to be there anymore. Ephesians 2, verse 10. He finishes the thought by saying, "For we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." We're His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. You see, you were created at conception. Your parents, they created you. God put within your parents the ability to create you. And you were a creation, but that creation was created in sin. That creation was doomed to death because of sin. But there's another creation. I said God is continually creating. Jesus is continually creating, not just by conception. Not just by a baby being formed in the womb. God is creating spiritually today too. We cannot walk in the will and purpose for God in our lives if we have not dealt with the issue of sin. I want you to know that. You can say, "God, I want your best for me," but if you haven't given your all to Him, it's probably not going to happen.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, "God, I just wish that you would help my family get through this." But if you haven't given your family over to God, it can't happen. See, you have a choice. You can choose to live on purpose or not. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." There's no exception. We're born into it. It's in our DNA. Isaiah 64:6 says, "But we are all like an unclean thing, and our righteousness are like filthy rags. We all fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away." Nobody can get away from it. Nobody has gotten past the sin factor that we're born into. But there's something that is amazing. Romans chapter 5, beginning in verse 8, and I'm going to skip a few. It says, "But God demonstrates His own love towards us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, having now been justified by His blood, we shall be saved from wrath through Him. Verse 12, therefore, just as one man's sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because all sinned. Verse 15, but the free gift is not like the offense. For if by the one man's offense many died, much more the grace of God and the gift by the grace of one man, Jesus Christ, abounded to many. See, the free gift is this. Romans 10:9 says that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. Verse 13 says, whoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. But you notice there's something we have to do. We have to step out of our comfort zone. We have to step away from that sinful nature. If you're drowning in the ocean, somebody has to pull you out of that ocean before you stop drowning, right? They can't just pull up in a boat and go, hey, it's okay, I'm here. It doesn't work that way. You're still like taking water in. They could even reach their hand out to you, but if the boat's 25 foot away, it doesn't work. You have to be taken out of your situation to be saved. And what Jesus Christ has done, He's offered to take you out of that situation where you are bound to death by your sin. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2 says, therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He has taken away everything that draws us from God. In Isaiah it says that our iniquity has hidden God's face from us. We are unable to be reconciled to God. But through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, for the joy that was set before Him, He endured the cross. You know what? God created individually. The Bible doesn't tell us that God just said, you know what? I want to populate the earth, and so man is just going to pop up. No, matter of fact, we see, contrary to that He knew Jeremiah before He formed him in the womb. That's personal. He didn't say, yeah, I thought about somebody like you and you just happened to pop up. No, He said, I knew you. You were created with a purpose. Your life is no accident. And tonight, you can choose to walk in that will and purpose of God. I'm going to invite the worship team to make their way